Hi, this is Pat Moorhead, and we're back on another Friday for the Moor Insights and Strategy Data Center Podcast. I'm here with Paul and Matt, and I hear a rumor that Will couldn't make it because of an Dell conference, a concert in Las Vegas. Can that possibly be true, gentlemen?
Yeah, we should have actually built a podcast that was Adele themed, like every topic was named after one of her songs or something. It's
8:45 in Las Vegas, I think. And enough roasting of Will. We miss you. We hope you're having fun. We're not going to be talking a lot of security or networking. Actually, we should. And he misses out. But hey, just kidding, everybody. If you're new to the Data Center Podcast, we're talking what you would expect, actually quite holistic: compute, cloud, quantum, data management, operations, AI, storage, networking, operations, pretty much everything you would ever want to put in a data center, but we're afraid to ask about. We talk about all the cloud variations of that as well. Episode 18, we made it, guys. Let's see if we can get to 19. I think we got a good show for you. We're going to be talking IBM, and any analyst podcast would not be complete without talking AI. We're talking quantum sensing and Rydberg Tech. Hopefully I said that correct, Paul. Data center cooling. Gosh, that's important. And we're going to be talking a little bit of OpenAI as well. So with that said, let's go into the first topic. Wait a second. IBM getting into SMB with mainframes. Come on, Matt. Come on.
You like that one?
Come on, buddy.
I'll tell you what, I was up all night trying to come up with cool headlines like Paul does. I'm convinced he outsources to some ad agency or something.
He does. Fiverr. Come on, Paul. You can admit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's the deal. By the way, pardon the background. I'm up in Fayetteville visiting my son, so I'm sitting in my hotel room. The bed is made, however. So
thank you for making it, unlike other folks.
I'm not going to call anybody's level of commitment into question, but I'll be here for you.
Appreciate that.
All right. So here's the deal. IBM, LinuxONE for, everyone knows about of IBM, obviously. And while, people, you can talk about, its prevalence in the market relative to x86, what you cannot argue is performance, security, reliability, right? I mean, it just kills. That's why people pay a lot of money for the technology. And that's why these servers that are based on IBM technology have literally been around for decades, and people and organizations will not move away from them. And so the question is, and really it's the Wall Streets, the highly regulated, where data really matters. Those are the folks, the companies, the organizations that are holding on to IBM. Question is, how do you take all of that goodness that's in the IBM Z systems and then kind of moved into the Linux world with LinuxONE and make it available to the SMB space? And that is LinuxONE for Express. So what is it? It's taking IBM technology built on IBM Silicon, IBM platforms, the Telum AI chip, building out a software ecosystem around it, and configuring it, packaging it, and pricing it so that organizations not named JP Morgan Chase, not named, insert Fortune 50 company here, are able to consume this technology in an affordable way. Same platform, same capabilities, same level of performance, same level of reliability, same level of security, all in a smaller form factor for those digital startups, for those organizations that kind of envy those capabilities but don't have the budget to be able to start to consume. I think it's a great move. And by the way, I am in no way suggesting that IBM is going to go in and start replacing HPE and Dell at every SMB organization out in the world. But I do think organizations that have, I've been in IT, and you have the IBM side of the house and you have the, the x86 side of the house. I think those organizations, they're very ripe for this LinuxONE for Express to start deploying. It's, you interface it just like you would any Linux OS and like any Linux console. The applications are all, it's Red Hat and, the open source community kind of embracing it. It's a really good play. And while I don't think short term, you're going to see every cloud native company start employing LinuxONE, I think longer term, you're starting to see IBM shift in its capability to serve that lower end of the market, down market, if you will, without sacrificing any of the quality of its product, but doing so in a way that's profitable for them and affordable for customers.
Hey, Matt, do you think, this seems like a cloud play where, you've got this amazing, incredible, expensive capability. It doesn't break, right? It seems like this would be perfect for like a cloud implementation where you get basically access to the consoles like you would at an AWS.
Yeah, it's funny because they play this as their hybrid cloud platform, a hybrid cloud platform, I should say, and AI. But it is very much like this to me, Pat, whenever we talk about, the abstraction of technology from kind of outcomes, this to me is the living proof of that concept, right?
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. IT consumers, business users, the kind of the DevOps folks that are just looking for resources, they can go in, they're able to access this like they would, any server that they have in the past. The management of the underlying technology is abstracted from everybody. It's deployed and supported by IBM partners or IBM itself. So it absolutely is kind of it is to me kind of the cloud coming to the on-prem data center. And I really like how they leverage that Red Hat acquisition and all of the IP, from the OS, from RHEL to OpenShift, making this and creating the connectivity between these platforms in public clouds, whether it's IBM Cloud, AWS, Azure, OCI. They make it seamless and frictionless. And again, it's introducing that enterprise technology without having to have those really expensive resources, people resources, to deploy, manage, and maintain on a day-to-day basis.
They're offering, it sounds like they've got a pretty healthy TCO on this.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Paul, and I'm glad you brought that up. Look, and everybody has TCO studies that are going to prove that they're the best, but when they look at LinuxONE Express, and they have 3 flavors of it: small, medium, large, essentially. They look at their small version relative to the equivalent x86 deployment, and they're claiming a 52% TCO savings over a 5-year lifespan. That includes, that's including obviously the upfront costs, the capital expense of the equipment, but throughout the life, management, maintenance, power, all of it, potential security exploits, 52% savings. That's a pretty remarkable savings.
Yeah, what's the cost of the entry level platform on that?
So the cost is $135,000, and it is your kind of mini data center in a rack that gets deployed in your racks. The logical question is, what does that compare against on the x86 side, right? Like, how many servers is that, and how much storage? What does that look like? I don't have that data from IBM yet. That's what I'm waiting for, to kind of, because I want to add some color to this. And I did a blog on it. I want to do a follow-on that kind of digs deeper into the TCO. That's what I'm really interested in understanding. Like, how many servers are you replacing with that LinuxONE for Express? And the one thing I would say to what you're asking, Paul, kind of tied to that is, if you've grown up in the x86 world, you think about compute and computational power in one way, right? I've got sockets, I've got cores, and you look at things through that lens. When you look at LinuxONE, when you look at IBM silicon technology, it's a different beast altogether. There is no apples for apples comparison when it comes to cores versus cores, or what IBM calls IFLs, cores and IFLs. It's a completely different beast. So I'm very hesitant to say that, from I haven't played around with it. I haven't gotten my hands on it. I'd be very hesitant myself to say that, one low end version or the baseline version of LinuxONE Express 4 Express would be the equivalent of, say, 8 servers or 10 servers. I just can't say that yet. But I'm hoping to have that answer over time. And one last thing, I don't want to drag this out, but one of the things I've always been impressed with IBM on is when they benchmark and they make claims, they are so tight on what they say and what they do because of liability and for all these other reasons. They don't make claims without being able to substantiate that with a whole bunch of data on the back end that is really kind of based in reality. Their legal team there is super tight on this. So I have confidence in what they're saying. I just haven't seen it yet. So hopefully we can talk about it on the next podcast.
No, it sounds good. Definitely a great conversation. Let's move to the next topic here for some AI doom and gloom from Paul Smith Goodson.
All right, come on, give me a break.
I'm just trying to keep a high level levity here.
Yeah, well, the deal here is that AI's dirty little secret. I mean, technology people understand it, but the average person doesn't. But as these models grow and grow and grow and get bigger and bigger, there's a point where things happen inside that model that creates additional capabilities. And these are called emergent behaviors. There's good behavior and there's bad behavior. A lot of the good things that happen with LLMs is that they're able to do multimodal. They can do arithmetic. They can answer questions. They can summarize things. I mean, these are all on a text-based, language-based machine. I mean, it just automatically, not automatically, but accidentally is capable of doing these things. So we have to watch out, as we grow these things and get them bigger and bigger, and we start getting towards AGI, we have to be careful of the emergent behaviors that come out of this. Just the sheer volume of data and complexity allows the models to generalize information from data in ways that they weren't programmed for or they're not anticipated for. These are really kind of accidental things that happen. So what we need to be worried about, not the good things, but the bad behaviors, and that's why they do a lot of testing on these. We have to worry about rogue AI. And one thing I think we really need to be careful of is when we start playing around with autonomous systems. Because if you get a system that's really close to being AGI and it's autonomous, can you imagine? And then if they somehow manage to create curiosity, I think we're going to be in big trouble. So we just kind of have to watch out. They did some experimentation with an autonomous system, kind of a semi-autonomous system. They put a GPT-4 model and they adapted it to browse the web and design a website and execute some chemistry experiments, all this stuff on its own. So we just have to be careful when we start getting into autonomous systems, because they can do things that we don't know that they can do, and it takes a lot of testing to ensure that they're safe.
So, Paul, is there is a solution a kill switch of some sort of physical kill switch to unplug things, or what are some of the things that are on the table? We balance this hyper regulation with no regulation, right? The EU has put some stuff in play that it looks like, seems onerous for startups. That just means the big companies just keep getting more powerful. But any thoughts on some solutions? Well, or what does being careful mean?
Yeah, it means right now they're doing they do a lot of rigorous testing looking for on new models. They look for bad behavior during training, and it could be testing. They test on different types of situations and using different data inputs. And they're looking for unintended reactions. They have like formal specifications, and they pretty closely outline what the core objectives are and what the constraints are. And the simpler these constraints are, the more easy it is to test for them. They also do testing on cultural blind spots and for gender and religion and things like that. So they're doing a lot of testing. They do external audits by independent evaluators. So
it seems to me that somebody, an organization, an analyst, a company could be really successful by putting together like a hitchhiker's guide to LLMs, right? In the enterprise, kind of a guide to this is how you manage your environment. These are the things to do. These are the things to watch out for. Here's some mitigation potentially. It's like I hear all of this big talk from companies around the danger of and governance and how we have to get this together. But I've not seen a practical, hey, Mr. CIO, here are the 10 things that you should think about, or and foundational things you should do before deploying AI in your environment. And I'm sure they're out there, but they haven't reached my eyes yet.
Yeah, those are things that the researchers do when they're developing these things. The thing is that it's so random. I mean, something bad could come out of that. So.
But the challenge, though, Paul, is those researchers, they write in a way that is not easily consumed by practitioners, right? I mean, they write in a way where it goes over the heads of folks that are deploying these systems many, many times. That's.
I think their review processes and everything that they go through, the objectives and how they look at it. I think they do a good job of it.
I love it, guys. Great conversation, for sure. I'm not smart enough to fully understand the risks. I do know we need to find a common ground with where we can innovate and startups can innovate, and it's not dominated by the largest companies. So
I've got an article I'm writing on this right now. So
I'm looking forward to it. Hey, let's jump to the next topic, and that is Cisco attacking Amsterdam. I thought all we did in Amsterdam was sit in coffee shops and smoke. Like, well, what else is going on there? And
look at Amsterdam a couple times. It's
look at the amazing flowers that are there.
This is an aggressive podcast, isn't it? Wow.
I know, man. We're going to get that explicit rating quick. Sorry, guys.
Interesting. So, Cisco had its live event in Amsterdam. I guess it's their EMEA event in Amsterdam, but the live EMA in Amsterdam. But as usual, lots of good news. I think the market sometimes, or not the market, but customers sometimes forget kind of the depth and breadth of Cisco, like how big this company is and how much it actually does. It's like the iceberg that the Titanic ran into. You see that iceberg above, but you don't see what's below the water. And Cisco is everywhere. Anyway, 3 things I pulled out of it, and I'm going to try and do a little justice to Will on some of this. I'm going to lead though with the
Will's
stuff.
Not here. Say whatever you want.
That's right.
Just make stuff up on networking if you want.
Yeah, we like emergent behaviors.
Exactly.
He makes stuff up on networking all the time. Why can't we?
I love it.
Anyway, Edge. So new announcement, new product announcement from Cisco. It's the UCS X Direct. So it's a smaller version of their UCX compute platform designed for the edge and remote spaces. This is a good one, right? So UCS is a very powerful compute and networking platform. Everything converged into one chassis. Really cool platform, lots of computational power, lots of bandwidth. And as we all know, Cisco connects everything, right? The edge to the cloud, to the core data center. So what they've done is they've built out these endpoint compute platforms for the edge that could sit in retail, could sit pretty much anywhere with all that computational power you need to do, say, AI inferencing at the edge, and all of the connectivity and security that ties the edge back to the cloud and back to the core data center. They announced it at EMEA. I think this is actually the second generation of that platform, but really good story. And I'm going to fly through these quickly so we can have any kind of discussion you want. That's part one. Part two, I was amazed at how much they talked up Nutanix at EMEA at Live in Amsterdam. They struck this partnership last week or last month or last year. I'm sorry. I went through all the iterations.
Whenever.
Yeah, last year. And usually the way these partnerships go are, you have a lot of, you do a press release, a lot of fanfare, and then you don't hear about it ever again, right? It kind of makes its way through the channel.
Yeah.
But Cisco has put a big emphasis on this partnership. And I think it has a lot to do with end-of-lifing of HyperFlex and really wanting to have that response in the HCI space, because it does play into edge. It plays into a market that they don't usually play in, which is the small enterprise and down, right? That down market customer base. Put a big emphasis on it. I heard at one point one of the executives talk about how they treat Nutanix like it's one of their own products, and it really makes you wonder, like, how deep is this relationship going to go in 2024? So really interesting there. Part three is AI. They had an announcement with NVIDIA where they're going to deploy AI infrastructure. So it's UCS servers, it's Cisco networking, obviously with NVIDIA GPUs in the NVIDIA software stack that are validated configurations and reference architectures that can be easily deployed at the customer site or on the customer premises or at the edge, wherever, easily spun up and managed through Intersight, their cloud-based management platform, which I think is a really cool play, all Ethernet-based, very cool play for what Cisco's doing. I love how it got its AI mention in there, but really did it in a relevant way that is going to find use. The other big thing is they're going to really push this heavily through the Cisco channel, which is very broad. So three really kind of interesting things I saw the company doing. I'll be curious to see, especially on the AI front, how that plays out over the next couple of quarters.
Hey, Matt, what's the current state of UCS? Who are they? Who is Cisco targeting, and who's buying?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, it has traditionally been a large enterprise customer, and it has traditionally been an existing Cisco customer, right? I've invested all this money in networking gear from Cisco. It's a natural extension to deploy their compute as well, especially when I can do it in such a converged way, right? Pull out blades where I have my networking and my compute. It's a great story. It's funny because I've talked to folks, and I think UCS in some ways is maybe their best kept secret. I used to talk about Intersight, but they're really kind of indexing there. And I say that because there is so much capability within UCS, and there's so much simplicity in UCS from a kind of deploying a stack somewhere and just kind of plugging in it and away you go. That I don't think the company emphasizes a lot in its messaging, because it is sold into Cisco customers traditionally, or I should say primarily. I think they have an opportunity to expand that SAM, if you will, the sellable market that they have.
Yeah.
And I know they're investing quite a bit from a technology perspective into UCS. I think they just really need to tell that story more strongly.
Interesting
Yeah,
stuff.
Matt, what's going on between the Cisco networking cloud and Thousand Eyes?
I'm sorry, did you say Will? So I'm gonna feign complete ignorance. Pat might know this and have an answer to this, but I have not been tracking the integration between Thousand Eyes and security and Cisco Security Cloud. Do you know what's going on there, Pat?
Yeah, I mean they're pulling together. So first of all, Cisco started off as networking, got into security, and then they added and basically security from a networking standpoint is a segment type of strategy, but it got you an incredible amount of data, which got them into observability, and they're making a play to buy Splunk right now. That's one of the biggest observability companies out there. So, and this is Cisco strategically taking adjacencies to networking, which is security, and now it's data, and then coming up with hybrid multi-cloud fabrics that whether you're running a workload on AWS, on-prem, sovereign cloud, OCI, being able to leverage all those capabilities across all those different areas.
And that, Pat, you kind of hit on what I think is, and talk about the iceberg, right? And so much below the waterline with Cisco. That's what's so interesting about this company is they are literally the foundation for data, right? For data movement, across the board. There is so much opportunity with a company like them and they're really starting to play into these adjacencies. And that's why I think like the Splunk acquisition, Intersight, and everyone focuses on Splunk for security and kind of what they can do from a security perspective. But from an observability, from a management perspective, from a data movement, you name it, right? System health, environment health perspective, there is so much untapped potential that they have sitting at their fingertips. It's going to be really fun. That's a company over the next couple of years to really watch Cisco and see kind of how they leverage all of this goodness they have and all the depth they have.
Great stuff. Great discussion. Sorry, Will. Hope you're having fun. I don't know, watching Adele at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Dancing through our videos.
Exactly. Hey, let's go into the next topic. It looks creative. It must be Paul's, and we must be talking quantum sensing at this point.
You're right on, Pat. The I got interested in quantum sensing about 6 years ago for several reasons based on personal experience with some experimental HF I've done and micro HF stuff, and quantum sensing just kind of fit into it. Sensing is important to the DoD. They've got 3 areas that they're looking at that they need to maintain a technological edge on: sensing, encryption, and communications. And so right now they put a lot of money and a lot of emphasis behind quantum sensing about 2 years ago. And a couple of things are coming out right now. They've just released a quantum device to measure where they're at in space and that type of thing. And it's a prototype. There's other different types of prototypes that they've released. One of them is by a private company. They did get some help from the government called Reedberg Technologies, and they've got developed basically kind of a quantum receiver. It's like a quantum receiver combined with an antenna, and it looks like to me that down the road that this is certainly going to disrupt a couple of industries. One is that right now we use sophisticated software-defined receivers, and in order to receive HF frequencies and stuff, we have to have these basically huge antennas. Antennas are built based on wavelengths, and you go from the lower frequencies from 3 to 30 megahertz. It runs from a little lower than that, down 1.8 megahertz. It's got a wavelength of 160 meters, so it's nothing short. Mm-hmm. If you look at an antenna for a mobile transmitter or something, it can be very short. So it's got the potential. Technology's got the potential to really disrupt some of the things. We've got quantum gyroscopes that are coming out. Um, um, in addition, of course, we got atomic clocks right now, and they're pretty amazing. They got calibration of losing 1 second every couple of million years. So it's pretty precise measurement by these quantum devices. We've got quantum devices that can measure the gravity, and gravity is a very weak force. It's very tiny, and they're able to detect things like underground tunnels and mineral deposits and even navigation if GPS isn't available. And they've got quantum magnetometers for measuring quantum magnetic fields and use it for like directionality, compass readings, orientation, and these things can all be applied to navigation areas. So all in all, for our defense industry, I think it's very important. It's a huge opportunity for down the road for companies that are working on quantum sensors, and it'd be interesting to see what happens. I mean, they can be used in drones and ships and aircraft and just about everything. So it's multi-billion-dollar industry in the making.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Like, Paul, you educated me on this.
Interesting. What they do, they use rubidium as a good atom to use for Rydberg because it's got 36 electrons in the inner orbits, and it's got 1 electron in the outer orbit. And what they do is they inject some energy into that atom with a laser, and they force that outer electron, far away from where the nucleus is, and it becomes very sensitive to like electrical fields and stuff like that.
Blowing me away here. I think 2 years ago you educated me that there were some quantum applications that are real, that are actually being used already, not to be confused with quantum computing.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I love it. Hey, let's go into something that is less technical. I don't know, more technical. Data center cooling. I mean, we have got, the amount of watts we're putting into trays, racks, fleets, and data centers is insane. I think we're going from 3% of the world's energy taken up by data centers to 12 in 5 years.
Yeah.
So it seems like we need to be able to cool these as well.
Yep. I'm going to call it quantum cooling to make it more interesting.
Yeah, no, there we go. We can, no, that's perfectly legal. Call it whatever you want. We're analysts. We can create a new category.
So here's the setup. The average server, I shouldn't say the average server, but if you have a dual socket server with a couple of GPUs, you're on the order of 2 kilowatts per server, right? So that's in 21 of those in a rack, which you're probably not going to be able to do because you might not have the power budget for that rack. You're consuming a lot of power. When you look at some of these platforms out there that are AI designed, you're upwards of 4 kilowatts per server. I mean, the numbers are staggering. And you're right, Pat. A couple of years ago, it was 1% of the world's power consumption was consumed by data centers. That was the size of Australia. It's now 3%, and it's projected to go well above 10%. That's crazy. And when I say the size of Australia, I mean the energy consumption of Australia. It's crazy, and it's untenable. We can't continue to manage this. And here's part 2 to that, right? While air, physically air can always cool, right? The amount of space and the amount of power you need to get fans and to get enough space for that heat to dissipate makes air untenable as well over the next generation or 2 of server platforms. You just can't cool these the way they need to be cooled. That's part 1. Part 2, the infrastructure that sits in data centers today dedicated to cooling for HVAC, 40% of the power budget. So you're wasting, as a data center operator, a data center architect, you're wasting half your power budget just on cooling alone, right? Enter liquid cooling. And I think AI and other kind of high-end workloads that require, kind of different kinds of cooling technologies, is going to be the kind of killer app, if you will, for liquid cooling. But it's going to bring in in mass. A lot of different types of cooling out there. There's direct to chip. There's direct to chip immersive. There is full immersive, single phase, dual phase. All of these different types of technologies out there. Every OEM has its own approach to this. Tim Shed, I shouldn't say a friend, he's someone I've spoken to quite a bit at Dell. Really forward thinking on this, has his own thoughts. The folks at Lenovo have their own thoughts and have done some really good work. HPE acquired a lot of good cooling technologies from Cray and SGI. A lot of good work that's been put in there. So there's a lot of movement going on and a lot of players out there. What needs to happen is those standards from ASHRAE, from OCP, and from others really need to start to coalesce around, not necessarily on OEM level implementations, but how you deploy cooling en masse across the data center, with the ability to plug in HPE, Dell, Lenovo, Supermicro, whoever, and not be concerned about proprietary kind of approaches. And I think we're going to get there, but it's going to be big. And I think 2024 is the year we start to see this become, less about what the guys with the hard hats and the pocket protectors talk about, and more, what the kind of the cool kids in the NOCs in the data center rooms. I think they're going to start talking about this more and more over the next year.
Yeah, anytime you get into stuff like liquid cooling, that was always the signal to me that we're hitting a threshold, and this may be way off topic here, but this all gets back to the slowdown in Moore's law, which meant we had to change some things, which meant we needed to get more to accelerated computing, where, is driving AI. And by the way, accelerated computing, we use ASICs for music and video codecs too. Yeah. And now we're getting into this systems of systems design, where you have Synopsys buying Ansys, and you have Cadence that is doing all these simulation tools to where the integrated systems need to go all the way from the IP block on a chip all the way to the fluid dynamics of the data center and how it's laid out. Yep. And you can imagine AWS doing this. You can imagine also Tesla automotive doing that, this very linked design, literally from the physical characteristics of the car all the way to the IP block and everything in between, the SoC, the chip, everything. So yeah, we're slowing down. Paul, hurry that quantum up. We're hitting a wall big time in conventional.
Well, the interesting thing is that AI, of course, is a huge consumer of electricity and energy and everything, but they're doing a lot of work with AI to manage and optimize the data centers and the energy. So.
Yeah, they have. I think it's funny, but because I've always thought of, and I've worked in IT. And these concerns were always somebody else's problem, right? I would have a line item in my budget that was operational, and it was facilities, power, kind of all that stuff. Plumbing. I never really kind of thought about it. IT executives are starting to get measured on this, and it's not somebody else's problem anymore. It is IT's problem now, and they have to figure out. And AI can optimize your power consumption across the data center and kind of utilization. However,
this is real-time fan. I mean, we're doing this live. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you look at what Meta, some of the placements of their data centers is very close to the Arctic Circle.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of experimentation too, right? I remember Azure was dropping data centers down into the ocean. And I mean, there are all these different approaches to how you cool. But the fact of the matter is I think this is going to be a really fun I don't know if market's the right word to call this, but really fun segment to follow over the next year and there are a lot of really budding startups that are coming up with some really cool solutions. So I'll be covering those in a blog over the next week.
Awesome. Looking excited to hear from it. Let's go to the next topic. More scary AI. Must be Paul. I'm just kidding, buddy.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah, build a better Biothreat. We should get a bumper stickers made for that.
Totally. Yeah. Get that done on Fiverr. Pay the same guy that does your descriptions for you.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
This is in the same vein as when we talked about emergent behaviors and stuff. OpenAI and other model developers are concerned about potential for benefits and also for harmful uses of AI. And part of OpenAI's blueprint for evaluating risk for large language models was evaluating what kind of help could a large language model give to someone who wanted to build something that was a biological threat. And they found when they went through a lot of tests to evaluate this, there were like 5 tests in the biological threat creation process. There was 5 metrics that they used for accuracy and completeness and innovation and stuff like that. And anyway, they came up with the conclusion that and this was all done on GPT-4. And their conclusion was that GPT-4 only provided a very mild uplift on biological threat creation accuracy. And there was another group that came along after they published this information. Excuse me. A guy named Gary Marcus, who's a professor at New York. I think he's a psychology professor or something. But and as strange as that sounds, they're actually doing psychological tests on large language models. Back to the subject, he said that the OpenAI researchers did not analyze their own data properly. They used an improper statistical test, and the way he saw it was that GPT-4 actually raised the ability of people to create a biological threat. So,
oh, interesting. So yeah, we put in the show notes the OpenAI test. Paul, maybe throw in the show notes kind of what the counter after we're done. Throw in the counter point of that. So it's interesting. You've got one company, OpenAI, saying, hey, this is safe. We're safe, really. Hint, hint. Right? I promise. And here's all these fancy graphs and those math things. I'm just joking. I was actually very good at math, folks. But no, I love this. And this is probably the academic community, right? That came out was like, I don't know, probably some quantum folks that are bored, right? Needed something to do.
And not that, this is kind of a new way of looking at the risk side of AI. So I'm sure they're probably going to come up with more sophisticated tests and figure out what the best way is to go about this. But I think it's a good entryway. I think we need to do things like this.
I love it. Hey guys, great show. Here we are on a weekend.
Hey, Pat.
Yeah.
Hey, before we close, can I just do and I should have added this in, just a quick shout out to the folks at ARM on a
Sure.
great. Man, ARM they had a very strong earnings announce the other day.
Watch this. Oh, thanks. That's our producers in the back. Thanks, guys.
Really, really strong quarter for ARM. Licensing and royalty numbers up through the roof, which tells me that they're doing well both across from handheld all the way up to server. They're seeing strong growth across all their product lines. Super happy for them. This is a company that we have some friends there, obviously, that we worked with at AMD and other places, but also just, kind of the approach they've taken over the last couple of years and the success they've had in working with the ecosystem to kind of build up that server presence has been nothing short of impressive. So it's good to see good things happen to good people and good companies. So congratulations to ARM.
Stock was up 50% yesterday.
Yes, that's crazy.
By the way, we're not equities folks. We're industry analysts, so we don't make any calls on stock. But in their going public stuff, I was very clear on their growth potential and what they could do. And they had a beat and a beat for the quarter. They raised for the year. They raised for the quarter. Their stock went up 20% after hours, and then their stock went up 50% the next day. So, yeah, I mean, who would have thought ARM is almost as valuable as Intel? And wow. And you look at a stock price is theoretically the future value of cash flows, and Intel makes chips. So their cash would be more. So it's like, anyways, great way to end it. Guys, thank you. Have a great weekend. Hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends, family, dog. We want everybody to get a bite of the Moor Insights Strategy Data Center podcast.